Thank you for joining. Today, our guest is Chad Hoke, a founder and owner of Flip Fresh Spices. Hi,
Yes.
Chad. Thanks
Hi,
for being
Mel.
here.
Pleasure.
So, I'd like to start from the very beginning. Where were you born?
Detroit, Michigan.
Detroit, Michigan. What is the strongest childhood memory?
I used to go, I guess, to summer vacations at this place in Western Michigan called Spring Lake. So I guess strongest childhood memories are just kind of being with family there.
Is it on the lake, I would think? It's a
Yeah,
lake
yeah.
and
My dad bought like an old resort, and he had like three cottages at this old lodge, and he used to invite all my brothers and sisters who were kind of older and cousins and everybody else, and we used to kind of spend summers at that place, which was really nice.
is it still there? Is it in the
I
family
think it's
still?
completely developed. So he sold it, and it's. I was looking at some all $1 million homes now.
Wow. Wow. What is it? Have you visited Detroit? Is there a family there? Is it?
It's been quite a long time. So my family moved to Seattle when I was
Okay.
11, and so most of my family's out there, and just kind of sort of almost two halves of my life. When I was a little kid, I was in Detroit, a suburb of Detroit, and then after that in Seattle.
Got it. What is Seattle like when you were 11 years old? Was
I
it a
lived on a little, actually, a big island that was now very affluent, but back then it wasn't. And it was right in the middle of this lake by Seattle called Lake Washington, and it was wonderful. It had about 13 miles long. There was a nice curvy road that went all around it, and we could drive really fast on the road, and we had boats, and it was really cool.
so you enjoy boating when you were
At that age, yeah, I haven't boated for quite a long time, but yeah, at that age, we had a boat, and I was allowed to use it when I was pretty young. So we would cruise around the lake, and it was great fun.
it's great. Is there a person or event that influenced you the most?
Probably my dad. My dad was a serial entrepreneur, and then he was also had a very kind of a conventional job, as selling into the auto industry. So I kind of watched him, and even when my dad was kind of older when I was born, and even at a pretty old age, he was pretty active and trying different businesses and stuff like that. So I always kind of had a penchant for that, although I hadn't really done much of it in my career until recently with Flip Fresh.
What influence? What about dad? Is there anything that stands out from his um, that influenced you? He's your dad. Is there for you, but in
So
terms of career?
he's much different than I am. So my dad is like a classic boss. So he's
Okay.
he had very good at delegating stuff and very meticulous in terms of his organization skills and doing all that kind of stuff. And I always somewhat aspired to be that, but really wasn't. And really, I'm not now. I'm kind of tackling it a different way, sort of more from a creative angle. But anyway, he was very inspirational in doing that. My brother's was more of an advertising guy. He was inspirational, and yeah.
Was dad entrepreneurial? He had his own business or
My dad probably had 20 businesses
20
at
businesses?
different times. Now, a lot of it was before I was born, but he was like a gold miner. He had an auto parts store, and he failed a number of times. And then finally, kind of got a job with the manufacturer of kind of V belts and rubber stuff, and he did really, really well with that right around kind of the booming part of the auto industry. So he was selling to General Motors and Chrysler and all those guys, and all of our neighborhood were big auto guys. And but he was a very conventional job then. And then he kind of retired and he started this coffee business. So he was one of the first guys to have like hot coffee vending machines, and he installed those
Well,
all over the place in factories and stuff in Detroit. I did pretty well with that for maybe like a handful of years, but he was pretty old at the time. But he
okay.
had, he had. So finally, after kind of failing in a lot of different businesses, finally had his moment there, and he knew how to capitalize on it. He was very good at the organizational part and made a lot of money, which allowed him to retire to Seattle and boat a lot.
You mentioned he had about more than 20 businesses and failed at some.
He's failed at
Did
like
you?
all of them until the last one.
Okay, fail all of them. Did you learn anything? Were you witness something? Learn from his failures? That's oh, That's how you get out. That's the most important,
Well,
I think, lesson.
so so again, like I'm a really different person than my dad was. My dad was very organized and very methodical, and very much of a boss. You know, he was like the oldest of the family, and I'm sort of the youngest. And I'm kind of more on the creative and more spontaneous side than he was. But I guess what I learned from him is to capture those elements of my personality, that kind of thing, to force the organizational part of it, and apply it, even though it's not my natural tendency. So, Flip Fresh Spices is really hard. There's hundreds of SKUs. We have to order all of the components. We have to build the jars. We're building racks. We're trying to juggle farmers markets. We have some retail accounts. And I say we, it's mostly me, but it's a really, it's a very organization intense thing. So I guess he would be my inspiration for trying to keep that all together. Um,
Got it. Did you have a dream growing up?
he or me?
You.
Yeah, I think I always kind of wanted to be an entrepreneur with small businesses. So even when I was in high school, I did like a landscaping business that was actually surprisingly successful, and I was employing some friends of mine that were doing it, and I was not. Again, I was definitely way disorganized, and probably milked that as long as I could with the limited amount of organization that I had. But it was fun, and I really enjoyed it. But then after that, I kind of faced up the fact that I had to get a real job. So I had a whole career in high tech. So I started out with a computer actually started out at stereos and went to a computer distributor. Worked with all these small computer dealers in the Seattle area, and then ended up working for different manufacturers. Kind of went up the food chain a little bit, and then ended up running all the largest retail accounts for Oki Data and Minolta from Texas. So I moved to Texas at that point. And then about 1999, I was able to kind of shift into software. So that was a pretty significant and super good shift, and allowed me to, focus more on, I think, the more opportunity area of the business. So I went on to manage large sales and marketing teams for software companies like SAP. And then kind of faded off of that right around 2009 when the kind of crisis hit. And then I ended up working for a lot more startups after that. So worked for some very small startups in a number of different software industries and ran small sales and marketing teams for those. And then just kind of decided to make a shift and go and try to do my own thing here.
Interesting. So, did you major in college in something about computers or?
So my college major was a toss-up between art and political science. And at the very
Okay.
last minute, I chose political science just because it was slightly easier and faster to get out. But I was
Okay.
big into watercolor painting when I was in college, and that was kind of my passion.
Watercolor painting?
Yeah.
Do you still dabble in that?
Nowhere near enough. I'm actually thinking about at some point when I stop doing this or when I kind of phase out of this, I would love to kind of get back into speed like on painting. But I think it's kind of similar to a musical instrument where it's not easy to get back up to speed. It would probably take a year of.
But if it's there, it's there. Do you have
It's
any work that you can share? Like,
yeah, sure. After the thing,
love
I
to.
could send you some snapshots. And it's kind of funny because I thought painting, especially watercolor painting, is a funny thing because when you're doing it, you really beat yourself up. And you can't really, on watercolor, you can't go redo stuff. It has to happen at a certain
It's not
spontaneous
oil
pace. You have
painting.
to kind of drive through. Yeah. You can't just constantly
Forgiving.
fuss over it. And you're often very uncomfortable. Sometimes you're outside doing it, and you're distracted by a lot of different things. And very, very often you're just disgusted with whatever painting you came out with, not with what you wanted. It didn't work the way you wanted it to. And I've had a number of times where it rode around the back of my car for, I don't know, months. And then I look
Wow.
at it again and go, oh, wow, that really wasn't that bad. So, I have a few of those. And then I also thought I had kind of a resurgence in my early 30s where I was starting to do it again. And I thought I was much worse than I was in college. I kind of beating myself up about that. I can't get back up to speed. And now I look back on those paintings and go, wow, those were much better than the college ones. So I don't know. It would be be challenging to get back into, but it'd be a lot of fun.
Will be interesting to see. Did you find college education useful in your first job after college?
My first job after college. I mean, no, but it was a good period of time to kind of adjust to the real world. I mean, back then it wasn't that expensive to go to college, and what else are you going to do anyway? And I was exposed to a lot of different things, and I learned to paint when I was in college. So I mean, that kind of captured a really cool thing, but that had nothing to do with my first job. I mean, I was like selling stereo equipment in Seattle,
Okay.
which was a challenge. And then, moved after a couple of years, moved to selling computer stuff from a distributor to all these little resellers or dealers back then, where that those were kind of driving the business. So yeah, there was not much about college that prepared me for that.
Is that after that you moved to computers, or there
So I was selling
some
like
other
full.
industries in between from
No, I mean,
selling
like,
that?
so once I moved into computers with the distributor in Seattle. So basically, they would sell to dealers that would sell to companies or end users or whatever. So once I started doing that, I kind of climbed up the food chain there. So a distributor buys from manufacturers. So think of a manufacturer as something like HP would be a manufacturer, and the distributor would sell HP to different dealers, and dealers would work with different companies and customers to kind of make it work for their situation. So I was selling to a lot of dealers in the distributor, and then in a couple of years, I kind of moved my way up just on the manufacturer side. So I changed jobs and worked for some manufacturers, and that's when kind of my career started to take off.
Got it. Did you have any mentors, and what did you learn from them?
Yeah, plenty. I mean, again, I took my mentors as having sort of complementary skills to myself. So again, I'm not like a very super organized person, and I tend to be very, I guess, I don't know, random in terms of how I go about stuff. So the mentors that I had were kind of like my dad, sort of organized people that learned how to kind of rope things in and turn, inspiration into actual accomplishments. So, yeah.
How do you measure? You mentioned metrics. How do you measure success?
I've been thinking for a long time I measured it by money. And
Money?
yeah, I mean, for a long time I did.
Okay.
Maybe less
Is
so
it
now.
still remains the same today?
No, because
Or-
I'm not making anywhere near the money that I made in computers and software. So, I mean, it's much, much different. So, I'm an entrepreneur right now. But I do feel like what I'm doing is somewhere the cross between sort of art and function. So, I mean, I do think I have a better way to approach spices. I think I have a very unique product that solves a lot of problems. And I think it's as much artistic as it is functional. So I'm not going to claim that I'm achieving all that yet, but that's definitely the path that I'm trying to get to. And I think that, like you buy my spices, right? And you're a very good cook. And you're probably, I mean, if you had to rate yourself, you're probably on the top 90% or 95% of the people that appreciate, really good ingredients and quality and
Yeah.
stuff like that. And most of my customers right now are like that. But where I really think I could make a difference is taking just an average person, maybe somebody that just got into the workforce, the next student or whatever, and get them, enable them to be able to use 6 incredibly fresh spices, make it so that they can find them easily when they're cooking, and make it really easy for them to keep them fresh and, you know, uh, at peak potency. Because if they do that, I mean, even if you do nothing else, and I'm just making up this number, I think everything that you make is going to be 35% better. And it's not really that much more expensive. I know I'm preaching to the choir with you because you do that, but it's a sort of a secret, but it's also a pretty hard thing to do if you're walking into Safeway or whatever. It's not easy to find the spices, and once you find them, it's very hard to kind of keep track of them all in different kind of bottles and stuff like that, and how long have they been there, and all those kinds of things. And then even if you're in a rush cooking, sometimes it can be difficult to find them. I think I could solve all those three things and make the spice jar that you have something that is kind of coveted and cool instead of a plastic thing that you get someplace else. So that's the path that I'm on, but I won't claim that I've achieved all that yet.
Would like to backtrack a little bit, if we may, and ask you about the excitement of the high tech in the late '90s and early thousands.
Sure.
what was your insight? I was not in the industry, never in the industry.
The whole
Some
thing
friends were,
was
so I want to
just
hear your perspective.
so the whole thing was incredibly exciting, and it was incredibly lucrative, and it was very, very dynamic and fast changing. So like right up to the late 90s, I did my MBA program at Southern Methodist University in Dallas. So I had a small baby. I had a big job where I was traveling all the time. Plus I was doing this MBA thing on the weekends. A very demanding program. So I mean, it was all out, blitz, just trying to juggle all that and keep it together. And it was not glamorous traveling. It would be going to Omaha or going to Minneapolis or something like that, and meeting with people and stuff. But it was awesome, and that was when the internet was just starting to emerge, right? So all the possibilities of that and how it related to different products. And I was also shifting at that point from printers, so Minolta and Oki printers, to software. So I kind of made a giant shift right around that time as well, which was also super exciting, but also super challenging. And that was when companies were, you get funded by a huge funding round, and then you'd have to go hit a certain amount of revenue and get IPO'd. So I never really succeeded in cashing out in the big way that some people did, but we were on that path and had some little wins in doing that. But it was super exciting, kind of the whole way through.
Did you learn anything from the .com, the bubble that burst early 2000s?
Well, yeah, a couple of things. So right, so the .com bubble burst, and then we all thought that all these companies were, frauds like that. They were like pets.com or whatever. They were, even the company I was with had, it was almost a fiction what they were trying to convince people that the product was. And it wasn't anywhere near what that, or they almost kind of did a little sleight of hand, just trying to show people that we're moving this fast and trying to do this. And then the whole thing blew up, right? So, I mean, we all lost a lot of money. People lost their jobs. And it was very easy to kind of throw in the towel and say, okay, this was just a bust and it's ridiculous. But you look at the core companies back then are giants now. So like an example is I was in the sort of the CRM industry, which is contact relationship management, right? So this would be software for sales teams and stuff like that. So right around that time, they had the very first one that was software as a service. So it was not a application that you would spend a lot of money and buy up front. You would just rent it by the month. And it was a very, very new model. And this company, Salesforce, that we were competing with, introduced that, and we kind of poo-pooed it at the time. And it's kind of I don't know, it's a little trend or something like that. That company is worth, I don't know, you recognize Salesforce, but it's worth, I don't know, hundreds of billions of dollars now. I mean, if you bought Salesforce stock for $20, which I remember distinctly, it was about $20. You'd be, shoveling millions right now. So I think maybe a lesson in that is try to keep kind of a straight view of things, and don't. The market swings and even attitudes swing pretty dramatically, but there's core values in what's going on. I have a feeling something very similar is going to happen with AI. Is we're going to kind of come to a thing, and everybody thinks that AI is going to be, the God's gift to everything, and then we're going to find out that it's not, and then the values will go down, and then real AI will kick in, and it will be a super important, super value creation thing moving forward. If that makes sense.
Do you think AI? You touch on AI. It's an interesting subject that I'm
Yeah.
curious about. Are we there? It seems like to me AI is more of a yes and no. If there is a maybe task that you doesn't have a yes or no question to it or answer, AI not quite there yet. I mean, we call it intelligence, but it's not quite.
So I agree with you in that, yeah, I mean, there's a difference between human intelligence and AI. So, I mean, AI is just basically, vacuuming the internet and just basically flashing stuff back to you from the internet in a way that sort of makes sense. But the way people are using it right now is you probably could be very shocked. So, I mean, like my kids, my middle kid is a software engineer, and he'll, if faced with a task, he'll just basically tell AI to go do it, and it'll write like a program of hundreds,
Well,
thousands of lines of code. And then he'll go see how they did it and then go, oh, I could improve this or change that, or that was stupid or whatever. But it actually kind of gives him a good starting point to craft what it was doing and shows him that it's possible. And he's also finding out sometimes AI will come up with something that nobody's come up with. Like it follows the rules and comes up with a very novel approach to actually solving a problem. And then even my wife uses AI, so she's in the industry, and somebody will ask her, hey, I need a quick report on this, on our status in terms of our sales for the next quarter. And there's a bunch of data in spreadsheets, and she'll just go tell AI to go check these spreadsheets and give me a written report of this many words, and it's got to be in presentation format. And AI will come back with something, and it's often not bad at all. And then you kind of gotta, tweak it, and I wouldn't use that word, or this is a little too wordy, or I need different bullet points. But it's pretty darn useful for specific things. So another example is I have an intern working for me right now, and one of the big time-consuming things that I have with AI with my business is when I add a new product, it's a lot of work. You have to add it into the system. You got to create a QR code and a UPC code. You have to have a description. You have to have the refill SKU and other SKUs. There's got to be a photo of it. It's got to show what the weight is and what the contents are. And theoretically have a couple of recipes that are there. And she actually came up with something where, like, if you put in purple garlic, which I know you're familiar with, we were kind of playing with that one, and it automatically crawls the web to websites that we sort of approve it to do, and it comes up with, hey, here's 3 possible flavor notes for that. The 3 things that I would put on the label as far as describing the flavor. It'll come up with a retail description, which is 200 characters, and for a retail store, that's what a little card would be. And then it will come up with a much more detailed description for the website, with some examples in there, and then it'll search for, and we're just getting this figured out, but it'll search for recipes, and it'll put those in there, and it puts them in a way that's more convenient to people. I mean, and it does it all just by entering purple garlic, and all the rest of the stuff populates. I don't say it's going to do it right, but it's a pretty nice start, and you can kind of go and tweak it and help it. So, I mean, I'm not like, Joe AI, trust me, but I mean, that's just an example of something very useful and sort of very, common sense business thing that it's really going to help us. And by the way, I think it's possible for it to make photos. I haven't done that yet, but I have to. One of the things, I take a photo of the spice, and I take a photo of the jar, and I take a photo of the packet, and they all go in there certain things. And I think that you could basically tell it to create photos of the jar, and it would come up with pretty good ones. So we'll see where that one goes.
Yeah, let's see what happens. What was the pivotal moment where you switched entirely to different path and became founded a Flip Fresh Spice?
Honestly, I kind of aged out of computer stuff and software. I mean, the amount of dedication and energy and travel and doing stuff like dinners and off-site things and all this other kind of stuff, I just didn't want to do it anymore. So I was involved with a really fun startup, probably the last one that I did. I really, really enjoyed it. I was having fun. They're based in Singapore, and I was traveling back to Singapore a lot. And then, what often happens with these things is somebody gets there and they just set goals that are almost unachievable. It's like, okay. And I'm always on the sales and marketing side, so it kind of falls on my shoulders. And just because somebody set a goal like that doesn't mean you're going to hit it, and it kind of makes your life a living hell, trying to reach for it. So I got tired of that, and I really always wanted to do something in my own thing. And COVID hit, so I mean, my ability to do that other job was kind of limited, and I had this idea of how to do spices, and I just kind of put my head down and started plowing through it, and it was about 10 times harder than I thought it was going to be just to get to the point where I had a product and a company and a launch. I mean, it's one thing to kind of think it in your head, and it's quite another thing to actually figure out all the thousands of tiny problems and solve them how does the label going to work? How am I going to structure the company? All these kind of things. You just have to grind through, which I had time to grind through in COVID. So I did it, and then I ended up with a functioning company. But then what happened is I thought I was going to be really cool and just be all online because I was going to disrupt the industry. And I had a lot of preconceived notions about how I was going to do it and how great it was going to be and all this kind of stuff. And honestly, I failed miserably at that. I mean, it's really, really hard to drive new customers online, especially for something as traditional and competitive as spices. So I don't know. I was kind of working with a mentor and an advisor, and he said, why don't you just try to do like farmers markets? Just get some momentum, just get some sales under your belt, have some conversations with customers. And I very much reluctantly did that. I thought, wow, that's not what I want to be doing. And it's certainly not very cool and not where I want to be. And then that actually turned out to be a really, really fun thing. I mean, you could tell. I mean, when I went there, it's a very, I mean, the market is actually the best part of the week. It's actually fun just talking to people and you get a few sales and you're getting some momentum and you get a lot of feedback and it's you have camaraderie with other people that are at the market. And I mean, it would be fantastic if I could convert more people like you to actually buying online after the market conversation. So that's kind of a big focus moving forward.
What was the intention? Did you have any intention when you started Flip Fresh, or it was just happenstance? I'm going to start this.
Well, so I mean, we're not rich. We're not like rolling in money. So there was definitely a lot of money tension. I mean, when I stopped, earning a giant income or big income with software and come into earning nothing, that was hard. And then my wife had to pick up some of the slack. And she had a traditional job, so she had the health insurance and stuff like that. But then it was taking twice as long to do everything and buying printers and going through jars and tools and all the kind of startup costs. It was very, very tense and very hard. I'm surprised that we kind of made it through it. I mean, probably the only way we made it through it is there wasn't an alternative. It was COVID. I wasn't going to find a different job and, just get up every day and just go make a little progress. And at the end of the day, all those little progress, you end up, finally you're kind of in a place where you can go do something.
Do you find a lot of competition?
No. It's funny because there's endless competition, but nobody's solved the problem. I mean, nobody's made it really, really easy for an average person to go get a world-class spice, keep track of it so that it's always fresh, and have it presented to them when they're cooking in a way that's easy to find and grab and use. So, I mean, to me, those are kind of the core things. And there's a ton of spices out there. There's a lot of people that are doing like mixes and rubs, and I've never really purposefully taken that direction in a big way. I mean, I just think that's almost being abused out there. I think if you just had 6 really good spices and you knew how to use them, it would be life-changing for a very big chunk of the population. And that's, nobody's done it. And so, I mean, that's, there's Penzies, there's a lot of spice stores that are out there, there's spices in the supermarket, and there's online spice guys and everything else, but I don't think everybody's put it all together. And the element that I have that's different is I put a lot of effort into the jars. I mean, I want to do like an infographic that says the anatomy of a perfect spice jar. And, it should be a certain size. It should be usable. It should be something that you're happy to have in your hand and that you're kind of proud of. It should be beautiful. And it should be easy to find and grab when you're doing it. And so anyway, I think I've built that. I'm probably not doing justice to it in terms of how I'm selling it, but I'm definitely moving in that direction.
Fresh spices, Flip Fresh is to me is equal to gourmet cooking. Is that a true statement?
Yeah, I truly believe that those are the best spices in the world. I mean, but they're not really way more expensive than what you get in the supermarket. I mean, the cost of spices, that's what's kind of good about this business is, when you buy them at quantity, it's almost a minor portion of the everything that you're offering. It's like, trying to package them and get them out there and all this other kind of stuff, which is why when you go to Safeway, the spice that's in that cumin jar or that garlic jar is probably about 20 cents worth. And I mean, they're charging $8 for it, and it might be 2, 3 years old. And you know what? It sounds like I'm being dismissive or saying to them that they're doing a bad job, but it's a really hard thing to do, to go actually present 100 spices on a shelf and have them all available and have them all consistent and all those kinds of things. But I'm doing something different. I mean, I'm taking the top 1% of spices that are just great and making it really easy to get into people's hands. I mean, you've seen the spices. Like, you take that cumin. The cumin that I have is unbelievably good. I mean, it's like anybody smells that cumin and they'll go, I didn't even know cumin could be like that. And
I can attest to that. Yeah, that's true.
Yeah. So, and not many people are doing that. I mean, especially they're not really successfully bringing it to average people, like the people kind of wandering around the market. I mean, there's people like you that probably would seek that stuff out from top end gourmet suppliers and things like that. And honestly, that's probably who most of my customers are at this point. But I aspire to bring it to kind of the rest of, there's a chunk of people out there that I think that would be astonished at how much it would help them and how much it would help everything that they make. And I just want to make it really easy for them to get it.
Unfortunately, a lot of people are happy with salt, pepper, and a garlic salt. 3 steps
because they
don't want to try anything.
Because they don't know. And also, when you said, like, hey, is there a lot of competition? Yeah, there's a lot of competition, but it's also a giant market. So when you have a company like mine, I don't have to reach 1 billion people or 300 million people. I mean, if I could just take 1% of the people that use spices, and maybe they're not the top end gourmet people, but they're just kind of normal people that would be very interested in improving everything that they cook, I'd have a giant business. So again, I'm very confident there's a chunk of people out there that are like that. It's just a matter of finding out how to reach them.
Do you think the membership model that might be great, might work for you? Subscription,
So
I mean.
yeah. So what I want to do is I want to champion this concept called replenishment. So what I think happens is that people get very confused about, you might have a bunch of spices in there, and they're kind of, I guess, degrading at different rates. So like if you had a herb de Provence or a herbal spice, it might be, losing its flavor pretty fast, but you might have a cumin that is better and it's going to last for a year or more. And they kind of get lost. In other words, if you look at most people's spice cabinets, I'd love to do a spice cabinet makeover, by the way. But if you look at most people's spice cabinets, there's just a bunch of miscellaneous stuff in there, and 2/3 of it is, that might be kind. It's old and it's flavorless. So my idea of replenishment would be, I would sell you 6 spices, and then I would notify you in 6 months, hey, it's time to replenish. So I don't care that the cumin is deteriorating a little bit slower than the herbes de Provence. That's going to make it easy for you. I'm just going to give you all of them in one shot, because honestly, the spices don't cost me that much. I can give it to you in packets so that you can refill your jars, and you can replenish all your jars of spices all at once. And there's just a simple kind of reminder, and you could say yes. And I could do it for probably a very attractive price, because it's just packets of spices. I'm not reselling the jars, and I'm also not paying an Amazon fee and everything else to go reach you again. It's like one transaction. It's one shipment. So in other words, the shipping fees would be very low because they're packets. They don't weigh that much, and it can kind of keep you refreshed with your spices. So replenishment is not something that I've pushed hard yet, and it's something that I need to have a conversation with at the market. But again, it's really awesome to be able to have like real-time conversations with people to see what's resonating with them, see if you're explaining it in a way that's kind of connecting with them, and do that. So I think that I can do that. I think that when somebody buys 6 spices, I can offer them a replenishment option at the point of sale, and maybe it's like a little coupon code, or maybe I charge them extra at the time and send them a little reminder when it's time to replenish, and I can get them kind of on a beneficial cycle, so that their spices always remain fresh. And one thing that I definitely don't talk about enough, but the jars are designed for that. So this is going to get more esoteric. I don't know if I've ever explained this to you, Mel, but you know that the jar has this little canopy right on it, and on the other side there's a root. So it's kind of a little. It's again, this is a prototype jar. The real ones are much better. But picture, this one, you could have your fresh spices in this, and when you get a replenishment, I could actually give you another jar.
Wow.
So all of a sudden you have two of them, and they're, kind of in there at the correct way. And the top one would be your fresh one. The bottom one would be what I'll call your reserve. So in other words, if you ran out or whatever, you'd still have one that's pretty fresh.
That's a great idea. I always run out, and I'm like, oh my God, I have 4 more days till the market.
Yeah, so you've got, it's going to get you by. And then in 6 more months, I'll send you another packet, and you take the reserve and toss it, because by then it's a year old, right, or more. And you take the new one and you put it in the reserve jar, and that'd have a different color lid. So you swap lids. So the new one would have like a green lid, and you just flip it upside down. Hence the flip fresh, right? And you'd be able to say, okay, this is my spice now. It's the size of a normal spice jar. It's just 2 of them that are connected together, and I'm going to use the fresh one now, and I just have the reserve, which is still pretty good, in case I run out. So that's the concept of the business, which I'm not really achieving yet.
Well, perhaps might be the first customer to try them on. I love that.
I'll
do
set
not
you
out
up.
of, especially cumin and garlic and lots of other things.
You're one of my best customers. I really appreciate you.
Yeah. Flip Fresh. I just noted that the bottles and the magnets. It's ingenious design that you can hang and save lots of space. Was that the name came from the design, or design?
Yes.
Was the names the design first, primary,
Yes.
and the name was secondary?
I mean, honestly, I get accused of way over designing and way overthinking the jars, because most of the people, I just sell a jar, and it's not has nothing to do with clicking them together and doing the whole flip fresh idea, whatever. I mean, a lot of times I'll just say, hey, it's kind of cool. They're magnets, and I sell those little racks too, and you can hang them upside down. So when you have a jar, you can actually read it.
I love it.
Yeah, upside down, which is kind of cool. So people are attracted to that. But I probably sell, maybe 5 regular jars to 1 magnetic jar right now. And when I started, I was doing all magnetic jars. And at some point,
Interesting.
I realized
why is that? Because people don't have that. That's why your spice racks come in. Yeah.
So the majority of people aren't looking for that solution. They're just looking for a great spice in a jar. And I was found out. The magnetic jars are not easy. Like, I have to build them. I have this 3D printer that's in there. I got 2 magnets that I have to glue in there. The labels have to go on in exactly the right format and the right placement and stuff. So I figured out that I'll just do it $1 cheaper for people that don't care. And most people just want a jar of spices, and I'm not trying to fight them on that. It's normal. But I think I can do a better job of explaining the complete solution. It is kind of a challenge. Like, if I'm at a market, I'll have, typically I'll probably have 40 conversations in 3 hours or something like that.
40 conversation during the few hours of the market. Wow, that's a lot of customer reach.
Yeah, so typically I'll do maybe 30 transactions, and I'll say 40 conversations, and just sort of guesstimating. But you have to be sort of economical in terms of what you want to explain and how you're going to explain it, and keep things going to maximize revenue and stuff. And also, what I want to do with the market is make it so that it's not just me. Like, I could actually make it successful for somebody else to go do a market. Even if I could break even with the employee at the market, I'd be pretty happy. Because then I have a customer acquisition, we'll call it an engine, where I get new customers that way. And then if I figure out a way to bring them online and get them going on sort of the more complete solution aspect of it, then I got a really good business, and I have a very innovative business model. Like, if you're an online seller, you spend a lot of money in called customer acquisition. You might spend a lot more to acquire a customer than you get off the first transaction, especially with something like spices, where there's a lot of follow-up purchases. So if I can break even on my customer acquisition by putting people out in markets and have a way for them to make money and have a nice Saturday and a nice Sunday, and maybe it's a retired person or whatever, and they can add a couple, 300 extra bucks or 400 extra bucks per week to their Social Security or something like that. I think it would be a really an awesome kind of a win-win, and I think it's also, I'm kind of drifting on you in terms of my topic here, but I think it's also a really awesome way to kind of keep people, especially older people, like engaged in society. Like you're going to go to a market and you're going to have relationships with your neighbor stalls, like I had with Gabe and Vice Code and stuff like that. You're going to know them all. There'll be like almost a neighborhood in there where you kind of see them once a week, and it's wonderful. And then you get good customers like yourself. They come, and it's great to see them. It's fun to see them every week, and you can have good conversations. I think you just, I always leave energized. Like it's always like a really cool thing. I never really expected that. I thought it would be kind of, I don't say drag, but I definitely was not like a glamour thing that I wanted to do. But I think for an older person, especially somebody that's kind of recently retired, it would be a really awesome thing. But I need to get it refined to the point where I can at least break even and they can make money. And then also get them.
Well, you mentioned customer acquisition. I'm a big fan of Shark Tank. I'm sure you've seen the Shark Tank and Mr. Wonderful, Mr. Gourmet, whatever he claims to be. Customer acquisition is something you put in, invest into. You don't sell on Amazon, and I know it's just, or Etsy. It's just absolutely crazy. But do you?
I did at the beginning.
Advertise?
Actually, what my original thing was Amazon, which I don't think I might have gotten like 3 sales on Amazon, and it was expensive. And they took about, I don't know, 30% plus of the revenue just went to Amazon, and then it wasn't like it was driving a lot of demand for me. So I think the way I look at it is there's and this is sort of a very hard lesson to learn, but like I have a list of stuff that's probably 10 times as long as anything I'm ever going to be able to accomplish. And you have to be pretty ruthless in terms of just focusing on the stuff that you think is going to make a difference. Even if it's stuff that you don't like to do. Like you have to have this sort of great stuff in terms of, okay, this is something that's relatively easy and it's going to make a lot of difference. I'm going to do that this week and move it forward. So like Amazon doesn't fit that. I think Etsy would actually work really well. But my biggest focus right now is kind of getting to, I think if I can get to a profitable farmers market, in other words, and it's getting better and better and better. I mean, I'm actually up 40% this year over last year in terms of my farmers markets. If I can get it to the point where somebody else can go and make money, and I can actually, they can get paid well, and I can make money on it or break even, and I can get customers that are going to convert to online customers. That's the most important thing right now, and that's my secret sauce. I'll be doing something that nobody else is doing. That said, I think Etsy would work really well, and I also got some pretty cool racks that I have no time to build. I have this circular rack that spins around.
Did you have on Etsy right now?
No, I don't.
Oh, okay.
I mean, I honestly don't have time to build it, but I think I have really high hopes for this thing. I think it's really cool. It holds 12 spices. It's about 8 inches high, and it turns around, and you can. It's a piece of art. It's like it's made of redwood, and then the cool thing about it is it's actually got a mortar and pestle that's built into it. It's almost like a secret compartment on the very top. You tape it out, and you have your little mortar and pestle that you can use for your spices. So I think that's going to do really well. But again, it's just this pile up of stuff that action items that I got to do that's almost overwhelming at times.
Is it inventory a lot? Moving the inventory, or you don't have a supplier issue? For example, I can find. I don't think you have Hungarian paprika. I know you.
Actually, my sweet paprika is Hungarian.
Oh, it is. Okay.
Yeah,
I ran out, so maybe I should.
Okay. Yeah, the what's weird is that one actually tripled in price. Like everybody's talking about tariffs, and it really impacted almost nothing except that one. I don't know why. I haven't really changed the price on it for me. But yeah, anyway, so yeah, I have really good suppliers. So I work with about 4 suppliers, and they're great, and they're super cooperative. And I do 4 or 5 farmers markets a week right now. So when I put jars in, I'll call it my sled, but the display thing that I have at the market, I probably have to fill that thing up 3 or 4 times a week. So the turnover in that thing
No,
is this stuff is crazy fresh in a way that a store could never be. I mean,
I
I'll come
know
back
that.
from the market and I'll just have a list of stuff I got to refill. I'm getting more efficient at it, but the labels are one of the challenges. I'm going to buy a new label printer. I can recommend that label printer so I can quickly refill the jars that I need for the next markets and stuff. So there's kind of operational efficiencies that are very important too.
Glass jar versus those paper bags that you have. Do you recommend those paper bags to move into the glass jar after? It's better to keep the spices in the jar. Is that correct?
I think so. Although it depends on how fast you're going through it, right? So I mean,
Okay.
like I think the paper jars are actually pretty good. They're very solid seal to them, and they're called craft packets. And I'd searched around for really good ones. So I think if you put those, and I think I could actually do like a little thing that's almost like a note card thing with little tabs with those packets, and for somebody that was just starting out in the new kitchen, basically have their spices with those little tabs kind of organized diagonally in there, so they could just kind of dial in the spice they want. So I think the packets are fine.
Yeah.
One
That's
thing
true.
I
I
don't
use
like is
both, but I use so fast. Maybe I don't don't notice. They always fresh for me.
yeah.
The
So I mean,
worst.
there's maybe a thought to be game of doing some bigger jars too, and I've actually played around with that. I did that with some rubs and some mixes and stuff like that. People tend to use a lot of, so I could do more of that too.
Spices expire? Do they expire like after a year? Is there a
So
day?
what I do is I say peak potency through. So if you look at one of the packets that I give you, there's a big red circle on the front and a handwritten date in the middle of the circle, and it says peak potency through.
Okay.
And I mean, it's not like a science, like I'll, calculate it out, but I know herb steak Provence is about 6 months, right? And I know that the garlic is going to be easily a year, and cumin's probably easily a year. Sumac a little bit less because it's moist. So I'll just kind of do my best estimation of when the peak potency is. But peak potency is like the critical term to me, and nobody else is using that. But it's not going to go bad. It's just like it's going to there's going to be like a peak of flavor, and at
Okay.
some point past that, it's just going to fade off at some rate.
Like a seasonal peach versus
Yes.
peach in the middle of the winter. It's not
Well,
going
the
to
thing is
taste.
that with a peach, it's perishable, right? So it's it's bad. It's going to be bad at some point.
No,
Or
but taste
spice.
in the summer peach and taste with peaches all around the year in January, it's a big difference.
Yes, I think certainly if you took an herb steak Provence that was, you know, 2 years old, you could compare it to the peach in December, because yeah, it would be significantly degrading.
Spice pantry staple that you can suggest for novice cooks.
That's actually a really good question. So I do have like I'll call it the core spices, like the 6 core spices, and I think I would put purple garlic in there, which is that purple garlic is just amazing.
Which one?
Purple garlic.
Purple gum.
And then I think the smoked paprika, people use that a lot. I might put the smoked salt in there because it's such an interesting flavor, and it's so versatile. You can use it on fish and a lot of different things. Certainly put the cumin in there. I think people should use more cumin. I would take an herbal one and maybe the oregano because it's so cool and it's just in those buds, and it lasts a long time, and you can kind of just
Oh,
crush it
I
in your
love when
hands.
I use the buds, and
It's
even though
it's
my
it's
hands, it just stays for a little bit. It's still
it's almost
fragrant.
those are almost astonishing. They're so fresh. So, and then I might talk to the person, find out what they're into. Like I think a lot of people end up getting that kofte baharat. I'm sure I'm mispronouncing that, but it's just a really kind of a cool Middle Eastern mix from Turkey, and it's very, very easy to use, and people just love it. It's actually one of my best selling spices. So it's often out of their comfort zone, but it's really cool. And then if they like spicy somethings, I always get kind of into the chilies. I think the habanero chili, which is my spiciest chili, I think it's also the tastiest. It's really, really good. I'm going to give people that. I think people love it.
It's great. So you have a wide range from heat and spice and
Yeah,
mildness.
kind of where I would be is like I'd like to find 6 core spices for people to start with, and let them learn to use those correctly. I mean, I think that with the right 6 core spices, you're not going to need a lot of mixes and rubs that end up just sort of cluttering up your cabinet and everything else. Plus, you're going to burn through the spices faster. I haven't really kind of articulated this well yet, but I do believe that there's probably like about 2 or 3 basic versions of mixes and rubs. There's like almost like a core set of ingredients, and then there's sort of outlying ingredients that make it special, like maybe a curry or something like that. You could probably have 4 ingredients that are the core curries, and then add 2 or 3 others depending on if you want it hot or you want it savory or sweet or whatever. So I kind of want to go that direction, and it's very amenable to the way I have my jars organized too. So in other words, you could have different jars that are kind of clicked together, organized together, so that you'll be able to very easily make a mix and rub that's kind of customized to what your tastes are, what you want to accomplish, rather than have some standard.
What can you entice with more seasoned gourmet cooks?
I think that they're the easiest customers, honestly. I mean, because for them, I mean, if you come by, all you have to do is smell the spices. I mean, people that know that they're super tasters or whatever, I'll have Indian people that are very fussy about stuff and very skeptical. That you could have a farmer's market, that you could have spices. And when I was first starting out, I spent a lot of time, singing and dancing and trying to convince them that this is really good. And now I'll just, hand it to them. And, that's something that you can't do online, right? So I'll just hand somebody the cumin or the garlic or more lately the black garlic I've been handing them. But it's so obviously better that it immediately kind of gives you credibility, and they'll start looking at the other spices. And, I'm not priced, like where, it's an Indian market where, the spices are 4 pennies a piece or whatever, but I'm very reasonably priced compared to like a store or something like that. So, it's especially when you buy the larger packet, it's actually pretty reasonable for those are $4, and it gives you a good chunk of spices, or the little jars themselves most of them eat.
Yeah, once you try Flip Fresh, there's no going back to crap.
I appreciate that.
That's for sure. Do you get customers ask you about how to organize their spices?
Not as often as I'd like to get that question, because I think that's kind of one of the values that I provide, which is if you get one of the racks, my dream is to have the really good spices hovering above the other ones, hanging upside down, so you can kind of grab them really easily and stuff. And I thought when I started out that more people would be frustrated with the organization of spices. But I'd say it's not a giant percentage of people. That most of them are just, looking for a certain spice, or just looking for ideas. And I do spend a lot of time talking to them about what they're cooking. So, like, those 40 conversations that I have in the market, they'll usually ask me 1 or 2 things, and I'll say, "What are you making?" And then it opens them up, and they'll kind of explain what they're trying to do. And I know enough about it, maybe not as much as you, but enough about it where I can suggest certain things that might be kind of really fun for them.
Making spice racks. Did you start that at the same time as you shifted into spice market, or was?
Well, it was always part of the vision of kind of solving the problem, making the spices easy to find, and easy to grab, and have the jar that was kind of special, a little bit better than the other jars that were out there. And I wasn't always achieving that. So when I first started, I basically shipped them with a strip of metal with some adhesive on the metal. So you could just take the metal and put it on the top of the cabinet and stick it up there, and then just stick the spices on it upside down. And that was actually kind of cool, but I got to the point where I didn't really trust the adhesive. It was like this really strong 3M adhesive that would attach the metal to the top of the cabinet. And at a couple of instances where it gave, there's a lot of weight to those spices in the glass jar, and whenever it falls, it's kind of bad. So I thought, I don't think that's going to work. And then I designed the redwood racks, which I call the surfboard racks. So they're like a rack where there's 6 spices on it. It's a nice little piece of redwood, and there's a nice kind of an indentation in each one where the magnet jar will sit. and you could it's like if you look on my Facebook page, which nobody sees. I know I'm old for Facebook, but there's tons of pictures of customers of how they store the spices with their racks, and some of them put them up on their own cabinets or on their refrigerator in certain patterns and stuff like that. So I think it's pretty cool, and the racks are good. Now this rotating rack that I have is, I mean, it's been really popular. Like, and the problem is it takes me a long time to build them. So I usually sell them out as fast as I can build them, and they're, even for about $50 for just the rack. So it's not a cheap thing, but I got to get more efficient in terms of building them at quantity. And also, it's been an iteration just getting the right design. You'd think it would be a very straightforward thing, but the distance between the jars on there so they don't interfere with each other. How tall it has to be sturdy, how big the base has to be. All this kind of stuff is, for me, it's trial and error. It's like, go on, try one that way, try one this way, try one with a different, turntable swivel on it. And so I think I finally arrived on the winner design here. But now I got to just sort of mass produce it. I mean, I've got my tools out in the garage, and I mean, I build these things. So it's just one more thing that's kind of in the challenge list.
I just had suddenly came to me listening to you. Said, would be a great idea to send a box that you make of spices to Oprah magazine, to O magazine.
Yeah,
Their favorite thing. Have you done that?
I haven't done any PR stuff.
Their favorite things, and just opening the jar with my blow up their whole Oprah's favorite thing. I don't know if there are any people who sell any businesses that sell spices, but
I honestly agree.
Will.
I agree with you, and I think that I'm used to what I'm doing, but I mean, there's nobody that's doing this many different things with spices. I mean, I've got a lot of different stuff going on. I got the jars.
How you package that?
Yeah, and I think that there's a lot of, I mean, I read some of these things of like the kitchen roundup of all the cool new gadgets that they have and everything else. And I think I could be at the top of the list of these things, in my opinion. I mean, like there's enough cool stuff going on. The spices are so great, and the idea of being able to replenish it on a frequent basis so that you're always getting it, and the way the racks are designed, and the little, the mortar and pestle that's hidden in there. I think there's a lot of things that are really cool, and I think I'm worried if I got one of those things, I would have so much demand there would be no way that I get it Oprah. I would be completely overwhelmed.
I know you can handle. I believe you can scale it up and make number one gourmet spice.
That would be fun. I mean, that would be my hope at some point. So I'm still kind of, I think, refining. Maybe I'm getting overly focused on that, but just trying to make sure the design is right and it's perfect to get to the point where I can really go broad with it.
Favorite spice in the collection?
Well, it's kind of shifts around a lot. So,
okay.
I mean,
what is it today? Today.
Well, so the one I probably use the most of is I probably use the Gourmet pepper. It's very, very spicy. It's kind of in the habanero zone, but it's really kind of fruity, and it's got a really nice upfront kind of flavor, and then it kind of hits you with the heat afterwards. So I use that a lot, and that's pretty consistent. But I've been really into the black garlic lately. That's actually kind of cool. I'm out of it back now. I got to order a bunch more. But that's kind of a garlic flavor, but it's kind of got a sweet, sort of funky aspect to it that's really fun to cook with. And it actually almost gives you a texture when you add it. Just like to stir fry or something like that. So those are fun. And then I use kofte, that mix all the time. So the kofte baharat, it's like a Middle Eastern mix, and it's just so easy to use. There's a little bit of salt in it, but not too much. That's very distinctive in its flavor. And then there's one mix that I make myself that I'm in love with, and I'm trying to get, and people do use it a lot, but I have this thing, and I call it Quebec, and it's definitely a play off of Montreal steak seasoning, the one that's in the store, and I lack of anything better. I'll just call it Quebec. But it's the same recipe, which is not necessarily, unique to that one brand of Montreal steak seasoning. But there is a group of seasonings that they use in Montreal and Quebec that's very unique. And I do that mix with the spices that I have, so they're super fresh. And I make it with very little salt. So the idea is you kind of dial in the salt that you want, and you can use that with anything. I have actually been using that with like corn on the cob lately, but it's almost like a seasoning salt. It's really good. And with the steak, it's crazy.
Great. Most memorable meal.
I'm a simple guy, um, so it would I, one. So rather than say hamburger or something like that, which I love cheeseburgers, I'll say salmon. So I'm from Seattle, and every once in a while we'll get a wild king salmon, which is very, very different from anything we're going to buy in the store, and it's also by far the best salmon. It's got a super high fat content. And then we get one of those that is really, really fresh, um, and it probably maybe happens once or twice a year. It's amazing, and you don't have to do much to it. I mean, a lot of times I'll just put a little bit of dill on there, sometimes a little bit of the alder salt, because I used to make these alder plank salmons up in Seattle where we kind of bring in the flavor of the wood to the fish. But the alder salt actually does a pretty good job of doing that. And it doesn't take very much. And with that and a little bit of dill, or sometimes a little bit of the oregano, it's amazing. And it's not complicated.
What's your state of mind today, right now?
Um, I'm actually having kind of an easy, for me, as an easy week. So I'm actually getting stuff checked off to my list. So normally I have about 5 markets a week. So like right now, this time of year, I'm barely keeping my head above water. I'm just basically filling jars and ordering spices and printing labels and just basically doing the minimum just to keep up with that. So this week I only have 3 markets, and so I'm doing some new labeling stuff. So I feel like I'm kind of making, for the first time, making a little progress on the to-do list. So I'm feeling good about that.
The last question I ask all my guests: what do you find extraordinary in every day?
What do I find extraordinary in every day? Um, so again, I'll go back to my sort of artistic side, and so I lived in Texas for 10 years. So Texas is a rough one. When you come from Seattle to Texas, there's not a lot of natural beauty, and it took a big adjustment. I ended up loving Texas, but it took me a couple of years to kind of maneuver and mentally and accept what Texas beauty was versus Seattle natural beauty, with giant mountains and blue water and all this kind of stuff. In Texas, it's more like, oh wow, that fence looks kind of nice, and
Very different.
there's a flower out there. It's whatever. It's anyway. So then we did move to the Bay Area about 15 years ago, and I really appreciate it every single day. I mean, I come out there and I just smell and how fresh it is, and I really kind of by mountain, so I don't peninsula. You see like the fog and the clouds coming in, and I never ever take it for granted. It's really cool. It's the nicest places to be. Really much very privileged to be here. If I ever fly someplace and I fly back in SFO, I just think, wow, I'm so glad I live here.
Thank you, Chad, for being with us today.
Hey, my pleasure. Thanks for inviting me, Mel. I appreciate it.